Hello, my name is Franklin Richards. I'm a member of the British PGA, and we're here at beautiful Turkey Creek Golf Course in Lincoln, Northern California, and we're going to talk about the golf swing. The game of golf requires that we pull a long and heavy lever, the golf club, at arm's length from right to left. And I stipulate that because fairly automatically people presume that the game is an up and down game. Certainly it's true that the arms and club have to climb up over the right shoulder and descend to the ball. But if we use an up and down component as our primary motivation for a golf swing, we make an error. It's actually best to think of drawing a circle in the air, rather like a giant wagon wheel leaning on the wall behind you. And drawing the circle with the club head is how we first meet an imaginary wall behind us, come down the circle, hit the ball and go up the circle again and arguably meet the wall again. This tilted circle is typified by a movement that may have a small component going upwards. When a wheel revolves, it has a small piece of its motion going up, but we don't define the entire motion as an upward motion, and nor should we in golf. So I'm going to look briefly at the portion that hits the ball, where we pull the club at arm's length from right to left. This is a mechanically unsound act. You wouldn't, for instance, conduct a tug of war by holding the rope at arm's length and turning the hips to try to effect some force. You'd lose unless the opponent was doing the same thing. And the way that that mechanically unsound movement breaks down is the principal error of golf. As we pull the club at arm's length from right to left, the club influences its own motion and ours into approaching the ball around the undercurve of a giant eye. If you think of a huge eye floating in the air here, this is two intersecting curves. The club approaches the ball around the undercurve of the eye and risks, of course, then hitting fat and off the toe and weak and high and to the right. And of course, nobody puts up with those errors for very long before they then start making pretty logical corrections. If you're hitting fat, you'll move the ball back in the stance and stand taller. If you're hitting on the toe, you get nearer and droop at the wrists and often buy more upright clubs. And certainly if you're hitting to the right, our temptation is to turn the club face to the left, close it, strengthen the grip, and just for good measure, pull around and up. And these elements, of course, are elaborate, numerous, and untrustworthy. It's not to say that they can't work. Golfers doing those things can hit a good golf shot. The problem is that they can't do it with regularity. Golf requires a sequence of successful golf shots, and one every fourth or fifth ball is unsuccessful as a formula. Now it's worth briefly acknowledging how those components, those corrective devices, could indeed end up with a good golf shot. It may have been unwitting, it may have not been intentional, but when those are effected, the club is brought to the ball down the top curve of the eye, with the club turning to the left like a door shutting, and any collision with the ground occurring after the ball. Now we know that champion golfers take divots. It's evident that they do it with impunity and great success. The rest of the world, naturally enough, presumes that a divot is a bad idea, because whenever they see one, it's usually early and deep and ineffective, not to mention painful and embarrassing. So golfers spend the rest of their lives trying to avoid the ground for good reason. We're going to look at how champion golfers, almost as a trick of their upbringing, and certainly as a function of no vastly greater physical skill or intellect than the rest of my clients demonstrate, bring the club to the ball without needing all of those corrections. The club, when it's brought to the ball in that fashion, turns to the left, descends the top curve of the eye and hits a divot here, and our interest is to find out how we might make that happen automatically instead of as a product of all these corrections I just listed.